What does OpenTelemetry tracing actually look like in code? OpenTelemetry is the open standard for emitting traces, metrics, and logs. You instrument your code with the SDK, and an exporter ships data to a backend. Datadog, Honeycomb, Tempo, Jaeger. A trace is the full journey of a request across services. A span is one unit of work within that trace. Spans nest. A parent span HTTP request contains child spans. DB query, downstream call, cache lookup. Each span has a unique span ID. All spans in a trace share has a trace ID. The correlation ID you mentioned in your draft is essentially the trace ID from OpenTelemetry. Some teams keep both correlation ID as a human friendly request marker and trace ID as OpenTelemetry standard ID. They serve overlapping purposes. So basically the coding is done in Go, and then let us say the answer. What correlation ID propagated across 10 plus services in second actually means. The trace ID was injected into the W3C trace parent header at the gateway and propagated through every internal call. In Datadog APM, I would paste the trace ID into the search bar and get the full distributed trace. Every span across every service with timing and parent-child relationships visualized as a flame graph. For the security investigation use case, I would start from a suspicious authentication failure log line, copy the trace ID and pivot to the trace view to see every downstream call that request triggered. That pivot took about 5 seconds end to end. Now, what is the alerting pipeline? What was the tech stack? The short answer, this depends on what observability platform you used. Okay. One of the option is CloudWatch, AWS native lightest stack. Our metrics path was straight CloudWatch. The audit log Lambda extracted dimensions from each event and pushed CloudWatch metrics through put metric data. Odd dot failures with dimensions tenant ID and client ID. CloudWatch alarms evaluated 1 minute periods, fired SNS, which fan outed to PagerDuty and Slack. Cheap and reliable, but CloudWatch alarm latency was higher, usually 90 seconds, sometimes up to 3 minutes during AWS busy periods. Two design choices that mattered. First, we alerted on rates and ratios, not absolute counts, because 100,401s mean different things for a tenant doing 1 million requests per minute versus 1K requests per minute. The actual threshold was something like auth failure rate exceeds 5% of total requests for any single client. Second, we routed by severity, page on tenant wide anomalies, Slack only for single user repeated failures that kept the on call rotation sane.